while we wait for people to sign on for today's chat with Jean Gardner. I'm not sure what's happening to my caller today, but here we have it. Nice, hot, sunny day. Hi, Jean. Here we are. Let's add you on. Let's see if we can see Jean. Video access. I've sent you. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
You have on blue and so do I. This
Do
has
you?
to stop. Yes, blue.
That's crazy.
It's,
This is all your fault.
yes, it has to be. Somebody's doing this. Somebody's doing this.
You are controlling the ESP from miles away.
Sending messages faster than the speed of the Instagram, internet, coding, whatever they're doing. Yes.
So, do you approve of this blue? This teal blue?
Not the same color blue. Different blues. Blue
Darker.
sweat and a blue shirt with embroidery. But, you know, we don't need the same shade of blue.
Well, you never know. It just happens.
Yes.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I am, just getting up, as you know, and it's been bumpy lately. All the cross messaging about what's going on here in the United States, what's going on in other parts of the earth, it's such a difficult moment to try and make some sense of. And, standing back and trying to just take it in. Last night, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't. A vaccine can do this. A vaccine can't do this. We'll be done by that time. We won't be done by that. This morning I'm hoping to be a little calmer.
We will into a different
Yes.
station. You shall gently carry it.
Guess what? You're breaking up a little bit.
Going to happen because, did you get a chance to have a conversation with me?
I couldn't hear the last lines.
Thoughts? Chat with Natasha?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think that your focus on education at this moment is what everybody really should be thinking about, and not confined to the classroom, but all of us definitely should be aware of what's happening to all the children across the world by having the schools closed, what's happening in the families because they're at home. So education in the schools all the way up to the universities is central to the collapse. But there's also the education of all of us, like I was just mentioning. How do we keep ourselves grounded and begin the process of living, not just holding back this idea of down or shelter or temporary, when's it going to be over? And all our energy goes to the immediate situation. But education in the sense, how we're going to live, what can we take away from this moment? So it's education. I was so happy to hear you talking about it last time. How do your I call them Edutours. They're on the edge. How do your How will they transform what has already affected them? This has affected them. You haven't been able to plan to go out. So your education found in the in front of the camera and in the past in a classroom, and then on the ground outside of the classroom. So that's the kind of education I think are struggling with. Do I fall back on what I've always done, whether it's an Edutour or the classroom? Do I use this as an opportunity to really imagine how we'll generate the future out of the present, not out of the past? So that's the kind of thoughts that came up.
So, across to the other side better. Can you shift?
Should I shift? Okay, yes.
Now I can see you.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
When you shift, now we are, there is no choice to think about education. So when I 8 years ago knew intuitively was not providing the kind of experiential that I thought people should be getting. Anything that called. So, there was no critical that for questioning. You've come to a point, kind of taken the student, not the student, the learner, the learner, like you say often, so I've taken curious imps, actual look from the classroom, away from the box, away from the environment of standardized tests, standardized learning, skewing back, and now they're beginning to see it, learn about it. And what I'm really enjoying, a conversation the other day about all the unexpected that trip with us. And of course, the people are the layer of social life. Now we're in a pandemic and we have no of the form of learning on location or home, or it's in one street. Need a new narrative, a new time for what it means, and learning how to learn. So the whole method is now directly dependent, because that's that which is connecting us.
I am learning to lip sync or lip read because you're breaking up, and I may not answer your question directly, but some of your hand movements may fill in for words.
Connect. Let's connect. Connect. I'm going to share this with everyone. I think, Jean, I'm just going to sign back in.
I sign back in.
Anyone there? Let's see if we have Jean. Yes.
Okay.
Hi. Okay. Much better. I can hear you really loud and clear.
But you're breaking up. Your voice disappears.
I don't really know what it is. This is it.
This is it. All right. So I will try and pick up from what I heard. And if I look at my experience, and we both are living experiential teaching and learning. We're both
Yes.
and a learner. So the students you have, the students I have, like you said, the word is not student. I use the word participants. So the
Right.
participants in my teaching and learning are, we're all facing in the same direction.
Right.
I'm not telling them a second or third person, meaning a detached idea of what should be or what they should learn. I'm trying to align them with the present and then do it in such a way that they have to make the first step, the second step. And then that is similar to what your process has been. You show back, talk about inside in Karachi with listeners, participant listeners, not passive listeners, about a trip. And then you go on the trip. So you're all going together. And like
Yes.
you said, that's when everyone is in the same experiential mode, because the unexpected always happens. Just like right now, the unexpected has happened. Our lifeline, how we connect with each other, besides through extrasensory perception about what you're going to wear today and what I'm going to wear. I don't know how that happens. But the flexibility, the unexpected, the landing with your feet literally still on the ground. Everybody who's listening, who's participating, listening, both you and I, we have done that because we're here.
Correct.
The pandemic has not thrown us so off balance that we're sick, or like some people are so exhausted by the tension and the fear that they need to just crawl into bed. And that's exactly what they should be doing. That's what their body needs. But right now, it's an opportunity. How do we keep our feet on the ground? And I mean that literally, in the same way that you talk about going to the village before you enter the specific place that you are visiting. Let's say a very ancient building in the tradition of what we call religion, that place. You have people put away their phones, you have them sit on the ground. So literally they're grounded. So this is a long-winded way to say, if each of us, the participants who are chatting, typing, you and I, can realize what we've taken in the last 3 or 4 months. Unpredictability. Everything that we thought was a given, what called the infrastructure, is collapsing. And people are dying. We're facing death, which is a regular topic in classrooms, that's for sure. It's always avoided because it's not integrated, I think, into life in what the Western US dominant educational system has given us. So the unexpected, at the same time that we are grounded in listening to our body, to our experience, to the visceral communication between organs. In English, proprioception is the word. So listening to the voice and the communication from inside, that to me is the critical opportunity right now. So we don't rush and grab onto an inner tube that's a lifesaver. You know, when somebody's swimming in the ocean or in a swimming pool, you give them some kind of floater, but right away you're depending on something that is keeping you up, that's external. So education at this moment, seems to me, we have to look for the internal life raft, which is the body, by the mere fact that we are here, is an indication of resilience. You know, we're not staying up all night and saying, okay, nothing matters anymore. That's the way some people react. And I don't want to start an argument between which is the better way. I just want to say that's not what we're doing. We're trying to take in what's happening. And the biggest thing for me is, how do you move from one step in front of the other and be alert and ready for unexpected, so you don't trip and fall into some downward tunnel of fear. So that's my thought about education right now. We're all in this together. See, I just had a question. You know, maybe that's what Noah's Ark was all about. These wonderful legends and stories that are stored in my body, stored because they resonate somehow. So, you know, get all of your animals from your animal co-creating, get all the plants, get every aspect of the living earth in this ark. So building the ark, I've forgotten how Noah built the ark, but obviously it took more than just him. So it's something we do together. We got to build together. Yeah.
So, I think a couple of, Hisham has just sent a question back for you. Hisham, who used to be Gensler, New York, and he's recently in Shanghai, and in Hisham's class that I attended the other day, today based out of Shanghai, how do we teach new concepts?
Well, thank you. And you have posed a question that is central to what we do at this moment. And the word concept, I think, is one that we need to look at very carefully. And obviously the word concept doesn't mean the same thing to me that it might be to the person who asked the question. There's, you know, that's where, even if you speak the same language as a first language, there's always behind the word, the experience the person has had with the word. And then if it's your second or third language that you when you look in any dictionary, there are about 4 or 5 meanings, like the concept. So concept to me means what happens after experience. So experience is not in a word or an idea. And an idea is a collection of words that I sometimes call a concept. So how do we begin in this moment that's totally unfamiliar? New was the word the listener used. I think my practice is to go into my body and to go to what I call the feeling tone. So standing under, understanding the feeling in my body that has responded to this moment, and I'll use the word pandemic. So the feeling, that's before a word, whether you get into a language. We may thought is what comes after. If you think of the brain, we have a nerve, the organ in the head with the organ we identify as the heart, and the organ we identify as the gut. So that vagus. So there is a nerve, and the feeling tone is played on the strings of the. So we're, in my effort to find words for what I'm talking about, the stringed, the wiring, but wiring gets us into machines. Sutra, the strings of myself, like a finely tuned, or maybe right now out of tune instrument. The experience I'm having plays the strings of my being. And that's the feeling tone. Tone is a word in English that has to do with music.
So we hold that idea of the, and we use that to use the idea of single through from the universe body to the earth continuum zone that then within inner being. Then Hisham, in question. So then creative way the world that we know question. So I guess within this form, what are the creative ways of the world? Creative.
Well, I imagine that the person who wrote this question uses seeing not limited to the eyes. It's what are the creative ways of experience that we're talking about? In other words, not just the eyes, but I'm talking about and what's happening right now, all the senses. The skin is the biggest organ of all. So every inch of me is the creative way of understanding, which is standing on all the words, all the concepts, all the discussion about whether or not we leave lockdown and when, all of that. We go down to what the body. So that's the creative way I'm talking about. The feeling tone, just at a moment when fear is closing us down. The important, like you said, breathing in, because when you fear, you contract. So everything is tight and there's no space in you. You're not open to what's happening. So breathing all the way down the trunk of your body, into your feet. Yeah, feeling and sensing. So that's not what we've been doing in the modern mode of education. So the plan is each of us, if possible, sitting on the ground. But if not possible, finding some place where you are, where the floor is a natural material, wood, maybe a rug that's made of wool. So in other words, your body on a fiber or material that is close to the living materials of the earth. And then opening, bringing that air in with riding. Some people would experience is life, the force of life, the chi, prana, not just the chemical analysis of air, but because you're trusting, bringing in air, coming down into your body, and then spreading it out, using it to widen your body, and realizing that your skin breathes. If the materials on your body are close to a natural state, cotton, wool, silk, that will amplify what's coming into your body, and you'll connect. You have to connect throughout your entire body, and you may feel it depending on the individual. The nerves all make the heart, it may go into the gut, but when it eventually we make a sound to each other, then of course it comes up, and the organs below your neck are in communication with your voice box, which I invite everyone to look at a drawing or photograph when we're finished. It's this tiny little muscle, tiny little membrane. And that makes your language and makes my language. And it's almost like a flap extending up into our brain. Not the only organ of thought. Or it is the organ of thought, but not the only organ to help us know what's happening around us. So the sounds we make, trying to communicate, you and I trying to communicate about our experiences, we eventually may find we need a new sound. And I think about what's happening in architecture, urban design in the Western world, because finally people have realized that the earth is part of any city. The city, the buildings, the sewers, all the infrastructure are meshed into the living earth. So now we're talking about what's called landscape urbanism. So landscape outside the city, urban used to be the city, and they were thought of as separate. So now we need another word. We're mushing together two sounds. that indicate the effort to try and communicate the the oneness of the earth and everything we construct, including ourselves. So, again, another long-winded response to that very important question. The concept is bringing together with hopefully many others, not an authority, not somebody who somehow has a higher relationship to understanding what's going on now, but in English, again, it's a heterarchy. All of us coming together, what are, after the experience out, can we collect it into a concept? Or maybe this is not even part of how we ought to be living. So.
Yeah. Think carefully. Hisham is triggered the idea of native, and if everybody's is crucial, new direction, then we are for a collective that will take us through a transition time of crisis management arc, and we project or expect what will be the result side of the transition. We should just and let that translate itself step after, without controlling the imaginary. So it's really interesting. So in terms of heritage, a friend of mine, the expert on Karachi. She's actually, and from seeing her work, which has been Karachi, heritage, everything, she has recently photographed shoreline, dead jellyfish, plants growing on the seashore, clouds, and I said, what? So who's like me, she's driven or heritage architect, is now for, I guess, her own new direction. By looking at the shore is a movement, not a static. So today the may not be there. Today's seaweed by somebody over. She's been doing ephemeral photographs beneath her feet, walking on the beach. What do you think is happening? How do we connect all of this?
Well, those areas that you described, where two seemingly separate ecosystems, a lake or an ocean, a forest, a field, they overlap. The marshes, the edges, are extremely generative places. In other words, two forms that are usually separate are two things that we have labeled, given words. Here's lake, here's ocean, here's forest, here's field. Okay, so that we haven't seen that they actually merge, overlap, and then are related. There are only certain kinds of upland forests that can be near water in the ecosystem of where I am. So actually the influence of this crossover that she's taking into her body extends. If it's an ocean, the salt means that the plants on dry land, not in the marsh, not in the overlap, but the plants have to be able to absorb salt because salt's in the air, not just in the water. And this is actually what happened when Manhattan Island extended at the lower Wall Street area out into the Hudson River. There was a made of that were brought as ballast in ships from England. They were actually bricks from bombed buildings in the Second World War. And the ships would dump the ballast into the Hudson River before taking on their shipments back to England. So that was made into a landfill and extended the island. Battery Park City. Very expensive apartment buildings right next to Wall Street. Most of the apartments were for singles or couples. They really didn't think about children because they were thinking about Wall Street workers. And a friend of mine was hired to do all the planting, all the vegetation in this huge piece of landfill, because the original planting, the original vegetation, the person who put them in thought that the Hudson River was a freshwater river because the word river means fresh water. But the Hudson flows down from upper state New York and it enters the ocean. And the ocean is tidal. So the Atlantic Ocean, the river freshwater, all the way up to Troy, New York. Hundreds of miles of salt. So all the original plants that were planted, and what your friend is discovering is this incredibly important overlap. We're dying. And this is such a good example of how modern, the way we understand the chaos around us is to control it, to put it in some kind of straitjacket.
Right. Always.
So what we're talking about, we don't, I don't want to get into a straitjacket now that there's a crack in the universe. So your friend being drawn out there would indicate to me her body is being pulled. And there are no words for it. No one's telling her to go there. I think this is why, at least in the United States, people are trying to get into the natural places in the city and out in the suburbs. In other words, places where the earth is still evident, beaches, what we call our national parks. But that's the living earth, because not only is she noticing the importance of these overlaps as generative, but her body, which has to have clean air, it has to have the elements, the prime elements that come together when you put your feet on the living earth to survive. You can't polluted air. It's cleaning up. So we're getting another opportunity to experience right in the heart of the highest asthma and polluted and all the understanding of how it shortens our lifespan, the dirty air. But something in her body, and she listened to it. She went out there. And that's what we're talking about. Perfect response. What a lovely thing to suggest.
Yeah, it's a have document work on legal restoration for all architecture in old really, really different. And now gone in the other direction, deep in photo and of beaches, life, of prints of birds and seagulls and crawling of crabs, the mica in the sand, the fish, and they're the most powerful photos of I have ever seen. I would never expect her because I'm used to very structured. She's not very structured articulation of the old part. So that's what my next question connect all of and this alignment to people that I sites like how should they be and this alignment to develop a better because now we've just is going to come out of the books. It's going to be one step at a time. So self-defining, almost drive its own, and we are for the experience. So how do we now fit all to approach heritage architecture? 200 to 1,000 years old.
I would think a possible place to begin is, so here's the pivotal dilemma. If you are a teacher, an organizer, which we all are teaching ourselves, we're all organizing ourselves. And you and I putting ourselves in that place in relation to other people. We have this tag, people. So I think of anyone who comes to me as a seed. See, again, I'm looking for a word for the experience. So seed is what comes to me. They are a seed. You have in you already your destiny, what it is that you can contribute. We all have it. That's that creative dynamic that often gets reserved just for us. But we all have that. And at its bottom, or not its bottom, at its essence, it has to do with survival, the will to live. So you're a seed, and by coming to me, you're opening yourself, you're making yourself vulnerable. Even if it's the last thing you think of, like 18-year-old that doesn't want to be in the classroom. But, you know, they could walk out. They don't have to do what their parents say. You know, in other words, if they really did, like the sculptor Andy Goldsworthy, art school, he didn't want to be in the studio. He walked outside and he worked on the area that your listener identified, where water meets land. So you're a seed, you're vulnerable, you may be resistant if you have an attitude. I mean, I so much. I don't want to learn from you. So anyway, you're a seed. So my response can't be formulaic, meaning even though we're required to have a syllabus, or I
Right.
may have a set way of, conducting a FaceTime with somebody who wants to talk with me.
Right.
I have to lay aside that and listen to you, open myself to you. So it's just exactly how I respond. It has to be responding to what I see, what I feel, in a sense of standing understand that you can, and that you are longing for. What is it you're longing for?
Desire.
And yeah, it desires. So it's almost like, can I hold a mirror up so that you feel, oh yeah, I think I will do that. So it's like a seed. Like right now, there's such a volatile weather system here. Some of the plants put in our garden, some of the herbs have already just wilted because it was so hot yesterday. So first we were watering them, hoping that the roots will come back. But I haven't been out yet to see because it needed water. It was too intense. It needed water. It was clear. Nobody in the extended family here had any other suggestions. So when someone comes to you in a situation where you're wanting, longing, they're a seed. But the key thing, they already have in them what they can contribute. And I have no idea, would not want to name it. So getting to primal responses, which earth, air, fire, maybe I need to light a fire under them. And maybe, I sense that they're never going to do anything that I suggest. So I suggest I don't know. But it's a two-way street. That's what I'm trying to say. So where we start now, each of us has to determine that. And I think that we're trying to cultivate soil. But the soil is a living organism. And it needs regenerating, like you said. So going to these architectural places that still embody a response to the cosmos, to the earth, to the place, and where the planets are at certain times, so certain energy comes down. I mean, these ancient places are going to rearrange the alignments in our body because we're between them. So, like I pointed out to each other the other day, geometry is a universal human creation. In other words, many different cultures, separate from each other, have used it, like a native Navajo in the United States who's nomadic. Their hogans face that where they live face traditional Navajos face east to the rising sun. Well, so does Stonehenge. So anybody in places is going to get patterns of relationships of energy in similar forms because you're placing those powerful communication. And that's what I would, like you are a guide taking people, but then you are trusting them. They will create their own response. You will align them and not be trying to explain to them what's happening, because that makes it conceptual. Let them feel it. And then that's learning, because then they are fulfilling themselves. They become creators. Who knows what they will do with this understanding?
Well, interesting. If we have a prime approach to a future curriculum, if we have absorbed information in a primal, using the age as in the last week, at several people, because we don't know, can you start heritage tours? And because 90% of the experience, primal level, like you said, is what Natasha in her chat the other. It was a feel. And she said, these are all non-descriptive, all ephemeral and creative. So I struggle with this idea of how do we not able to smell the air, the building, or touch. I feel like sweat and feel the sweat against your skin and absorb the climate around it, which I don't know. I wonder if the virtual environment will be able to match that experience that you take. Show you, but will it really be the same? Primal can that be? Right now, as you said, it's extremely primal, because I align them and then quietly I let them express whatever they want. I'm not sure how primal sound from here coming through is going to match a digital and a digital. That's my.
Well, in the last minutes, we will. My just incredible synchronicity. I was told by my university 2 days ago, next fall, online or wherever we are, we want you to teach a seminar on geometry.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And they were, and, I can't tell you the details in the background, but nothing could be more what I would like to do. I'm not a mathematician, so the opportunity is not always likely to be put in my court. But in answer to your question, the first place you begin is your own body. And you can begin to tune it inside, or if you're lucky enough to go someplace right outside your door, you can do it outside under the sky. You won't necessarily be standing on living earth, but beneath the pavement is the living earth, and its energy is strong enough to come through. But where you start is standing with bare feet, hopefully on a floor that's like a wooden floor, and feeling, it's called the axis mundi in Latin, the axis of, so you can start here, because the building does not, as you know from these heritage sites, the building doesn't prevent it. The building can distort it. The axis mundi, and then making a circle and doing a number of exercises described in that article. Then you can get a compass and a piece of paper and you can transfer it. But because you're doing it with your arm, with a compass, being the axis mundi, extending the arm of the compass, the pencil, making a circle, your body through your hand and through your arm is realigning itself. I've done this with a colleague in a classroom. It's extraordinary. You don't have to tell the student what's going on, but their internal relationship, proprioception, is now aligning with the biosphere and the cosmos. So, a place to start, and it would be an interesting experiment. If you can't go out, you can at least begin what you call the tour in a way that takes in the opportunity of what it is you're going to feel when you get to the site by doing it internally, aligning the proprioception to some of those dynamics that you showed me in the carvings. And that would be very interesting if you can't go the extent to which a person can experience because their body is aligned at a distance through the digital. And dreaming is a very important place where that can happen.
So, Jean, if you hold that thought for today, would you mind back and picked up on the geometry, sacred geometry that we recreate, and how it's that resonance with continuum between the universe, spirit, the building, the Islamic geometry, all basically blend one, depending on skill. Let's pick up on that on my. That's good with you.
Yes, thank you.
Out in the meantime, I will. This. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Jean.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.